Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
What are some weird memories you have from childhood?
Dad is really into motocross. Got me a little dirt bike when I was young, maybe around 6 or 8, not sure anymore. Would take me out and let me ride around in an area on it, or I would sit towards the front and my dad would sit behind me and steer and take us somewhere. Live in rural ex-mineland. Apart from occasionally having to cross a main road, it's ideal for getting around on dirt bikes. Plenty of slag heaps to climb and descend to make it fun. We would ride my little bike up through the fields and back paths to my grandparents' house probably 5 miles away. One day, heading along part of the back paths, a long path with fields and woods on one side, and it follows along the long side wall of a big enclosed industrial estate on the other with a strip of grass and few trees in between. Nobody really needs to walk along this path. It's good for going on bike rides with Grandad, but never seen anyone walking. This day, we're ripping along this path on the dirt bike, and 2 men in suits are on the path facing us. One in a full orange suit, one in a full green suit, like smart tweed suits with bowler hats. Nobody dresses like that around here, especially not in a field behind an industrial estate. They hurriedly step off to either side of the path to let us through. As we're about to pass between them, both in unison say, "This is a footpath." What? Accents sound posh. Footpath rather than path. Around here, the A sound in path is pronounced like in hand. Fairly oldish, at least middle-aged. They were going into the middle of nowhere. The path is just gravelly dirt that leads into miles of nothing but slag heaps and trees. WTF? Go to Grandad's as normal and eat jammy Dodgers or something.
Damn, you might never see this, but that was interesting. Did you ever ask your dad about it? Or if not, what was his reaction to it? Also, I don't know what a jammy Dodger is because I'm an American, but it sounds like a nice life. Thanks for sharing.
He just said something to the effect of calling them fussy buggers or grumpy gets, and that was it. Not to them, just to laugh with me about them once we were out of their earshot. Didn't indicate he thought they were anything special beyond a couple of killjoys. I thought it was strange and cartoonish the way they panicked and hurriedly moved to either side of the path. We were nowhere near hitting them, and both just yelled it perfectly in unison. Jammy Dodgers are a kind of biscuit with jam that I used to like. They have heart shapes cut in the top so you can see the jam underneath, making the heart red. Same poster. Here's another. Not far from where we live across the fields, there's a long slag heap with a path sort of dug into the top of it by motorbikes going over. Similar area. Another story, but closer to home in a different direction. We discover that if you dig into the wall of the path, where it goes up from the dug in lower path to the normal surrounding grassy ground, there are lizards living under there. Not sure what sort they are exactly. We called them newts. We would take nice-looking ones as pets and stuff, and would sometimes just walk around with a little lizard in my tracky pockets. Go there often and dig, occasionally hit a vein and mine out the lizards in the soil to play with. One day I dig through into a small hollow section, not very deep into the wall, full of them, scooping them out with something. At the back of the cave, probably just less than a foot deep in the wall, something is thrashing about. Seems like some kind of arm with a hand on the end. I always referred to it as the claw when telling friends the story. It's thrashing about violently with the upper arm going into the soil, no sign of what it's attached to. It's buried still. Yellowish in color with slight greenness, webbed like a big frog's foot. No thumb, just like a webbed flipper type thing with points where the fingers were. I'd say the hand part was just over an inch across in width. Full visible length of the arm and hand, maybe 5 inches. Has a joint like an elbow halfway up. Don't get near it, back away from the hole. Never dug for newts again. Same poster, have this last story. None are exactly paranormal, just memories I don't have the answer to. In Mallorca, on holiday. Probably 11-ish. Been to the same place a few years in a row. We like it there. Never seen any odd creatures there, except some weird lanky black wasps. One day, me and my brother are digging on the beach close to the sea. Dig up something. Weirdest, most alien-looking bug either of us have seen. Deeply disturbed by its existence, probably 5 inches long. Long, thin body, mostly arse. By far the biggest bug we've ever seen. Back home, the biggest insect we'd seen is probably a daddy longlegs. Cranefly, my mum was terrified of them. Obviously, this affront to God needs to be dealt with. We somehow got it in a plastic bottle. Can't remember how. Poured sand in with our hands until it was full. Put the lid on to seal the evil inside its foul casket. Went up onto the cliffs alongside the sea and cast the beast in, thus ridding the world of its dark presence. Pick related, how I remember it looking. No, it wasn't a mole cricket. Probably just some normal thing they're used to over there, but I've tried to find out what it could have been and never seen anything like it since.
Early 90s, upstate New York, family cookout, all the cousins, aunts, and uncles, massive gathering. It's summertime, so it's super nice out. In the early evening, I happen to notice what looks like a homeless bum walking at a leisurely pace out of the woods behind the house and towards the party. I tell my mom, she looks at the man and immediately calls for my dad. My dad takes one look at the dude and immediately says, "Jesus Christ, get everybody in the house." I clearly remember everyone running into the house as this man approaches from the woods. Just some dirty bum with a long beard, looks to be maybe 50s but could be younger. We watch from the porch windows as the bum lifts a picnic table full of food and drinks and flips it with one hand. I clearly remember my uncle wanting to go out and fuck the dude up. He even went to open the door to go out, but my grandpa stopped him. Dude turns and makes eye contact with me through the window. Smiles, eventually stumbles back into the woods the way he had come and disappears. Now, what is so weird about all of this is that my dad was a lieutenant with the city police department. He could have had the whole department down there with one phone call. But he was terrified. My grandpa was a World War II Marine vet, and my uncle was a professional boxer. These were tough dudes, and they were all afraid of this dirty old bum. Grandpa and uncle have both passed, but I asked my parents about this a couple years ago, and they both claimed they don't remember it. Bullshit.
Could go on all night about it in a nutshell. Places in nearby woods from my childhood house would randomly appear and disappear. The one time I was sort of abducted. Mystery neighbors I met when I was really young turned out to not exist. The secret room in my house that only existed in my dreams was gorgeous, but gave me a terrified feeling. The house was built brand new, and we were the first family to live in it. If I get any responses, I can tell the stories, save for the last one. Pretty much tells itself. Seemed like a white marble dining room with a roaring fireplace with brass and quartz ornaments. For context, this takes place in a pretty big house that I grew up in out countryside. Grandma lived with us in a finished basement. Parents just divorced and are selling the house. Grandma's still living in the basement while things were getting wrapped up. Guess this doesn't really count as a childhood memory, but whatever. I was sober for it, and it was almost a decade ago. Just turned 19 years old. Broke up with my girlfriend and had nowhere to go. Talked Grandma into staying with her while I figure things out. Parents say it's okay and tell me to not do anything stupid. Fair enough, I'm quite the fool. Second or third day in, I call my dad, just to talk to him and say thanks again. Don't remember exactly how it came up, but all of a sudden he said, "Don't go upstairs." And I got an overwhelming feeling that if I did, I was going to walk into something I shouldn't see. Eventually say goodbye and dismiss said feeling, though I didn't go upstairs. He was just worried I'd throw a party up there or something. But it was one hell of a coincidence later that night. Grandma is sleeping. Turn lights down and lay in the guest bedroom downstairs. See an orb appear in front of me with red and blue lights swirling around in it. Look up at the wall above my head. Large fans turning slowly, like I'm in a warehouse or on a ship or something. The place looks like it has at least a 20-foot ceiling, maybe taller. Can't really see the bedroom anymore, but still feel the bed I'm supposed to be on. All of a sudden, I notice like 4 or 5 of them standing around me, looking down with sort of a smirk on their face. Couldn't really make out eyes. Like 8 feet tall, very masculine. Start freaking out and roll off the bed. Feel the carpet that's supposed to be there. crawl towards where the light switch is supposed to be and punch it. I'm back in the bedroom all of a sudden. Everything is how it should be. WTF. Ended up playing on the computer with the lights on for a while and eventually got over it and went back to bed.
Assuming you didn't sleep at all and this wasn't just a dream, how do you suppose you were able to just get back to your room from being abducted? Sounds more like an illusion or hallucination if you were just back as soon as you got up. Maybe ghosts messing with you, or the aliens can sort of meld your room with theirs like an overlapping projection.
That's the only way I can make sense of it, using the word sense pretty loosely here. I've been calling it cross-planar contact. The only question I really have is if it was an accident or not. If they did that intentionally, then there's no doubt in my mind they would have had my ass if they wanted it. Probably gonna hit the text limit, so bear with me. Same place as the abduction story. I'm like 10 years old, don't remember for sure. A ton of people over for Thanksgiving or something. Out in the woods playing with other kids, I know them pretty well. Wander off with a girl I liked into an area I haven't checked out before. Maybe like 4 others we walked away from. After hopping a ditch and walking through some brush, we found a trail, a pretty big one with tire tracks. We walk along it for a while, never finding out where it goes. After a while, she says something feels iffy and wants to go back to the others. I didn't feel anything, but she was the only reason I was back there, so I left too. Went back to where we came out of the brush and went home with the others. Tell Mom about my adventure and the new trail I found. She gets very upset and tells me about how unsafe unfamiliar land can be, and to never go back there. Literally go back the next day. Trail is gone. X-Files theme DOT WAV. Didn't notice it at the time, but looking back I couldn't hear the others while we were walking down said trail, even though they should have been well within earshot.
I actually had an experience when I was about 15 camping with my parents. Deep in the woods at a family member's cabin in the Midwest. Mom, Dad, sister, me. Early in the evening, we're sitting inside and hear 3 distinct footsteps on the porch, heading up the steps and to the door. Dad opens a door, thinking it might be Department of Natural Resources or something, but nobody was there. Go to bed for the night. I'm sleeping in a tent outside the cabin. Hear sticks crackling. I assume my parents are up late at the fire and start to fall back asleep a short time later. My dad woke me up to come inside quickly. The wind is blowing. I assume it's a tornado since we get a lot of those here. On the way in, I noticed my dad had his handgun drawn, but figured it was just in case of a wild animal. Get inside the cabin and immediately notice how stressed my mom and sister look. They ask me if I heard anything. I say no. A little time passes. I think the wind has died down by now, but I can't remember. I'm laying in the top bunk and start to hear what sounds like branches being snapped around the cabin, along with weird guttural noises. Sounded like a human making weird noises more than an animal, looking back on it. Fall back asleep. Wake up to the sound of branches snapping, coming from the front porch. Sit straight up and see the rest of my family already awake and wide-eyed. The sound of sticks breaking gets noticeably louder. My dad bursts out of the front door with his gun and flashlight and starts looking around the cabin for whoever was just on the porch. It's windy again. He gets back, kicks the broken sticks off the porch, and says there was nobody there. I fell asleep, but I'm pretty sure my dad stayed up all night. Wake up in the morning and hear everyone on the porch talking. There's another pile of broken sticks with what appeared to be saliva. We pack up and leave after one night. Haven't talked about it as a family since.
I had a friend Jackie when I was very young, like 4 to 8. He lived 2 houses down from me. His dad was a big wheel at a port operation, loading and unloading ships. He eventually became president of the company. One day we were out in Jackie's backyard and his dad was doing something. I don't remember what, but he cut his finger and there was blood all over it. I remember it as plain as day, like it happened yesterday. Jackie's dad held out his finger in front of Jackie, and without either one of them saying anything, Jackie sucked the blood off of it. It was so strange, and I got the distinct impression that they had done this before. It wasn't like Jackie asked him if he wanted a Band-Aid, and his dad said, "No, I want you to suck the blood off my finger." Then Jackie said, "That's gross, Dad." Then his dad said, "Do it anyway." Nothing like that. It was instant, like without even thinking about it. I thought maybe they were some weird foreigners who do stuff like that. It was just so strange and creepy. I don't know if this was before that or after, but I got invited to sleep over at Jackie's house. We would have been maybe 6 at the time. In the afternoon, out of the blue, we all got into their car. Me, Jackie, and his sister were in the back seat. Jackie's mom and dad were in the front. Jackie's mom turned around and told me that she called my mom, and my mom said it was all right if I went with them. The whole thing was off. Nobody mentioned we were going anywhere. They never asked me if I wanted to go. They never told me where we were going. Why? Nothing. Even at 6 years old, I knew something was not right about it. That's just not the way things work. I don't know how long we were in the car, about 20 minutes maybe, before we got to a park. There was lots of people there, adults and kids. As soon as we got there, Jackie and his sister went off to play with a group of kids. For whatever reason, I wasn't allowed to go with them. Jackie's mom took me over to this stage, bandshell-like thing, over on the other side of the park, way away from everybody else. We were there for a long time. Basically, I just walked around on this stage, doing nothing for what seemed like forever. Eventually, it got dark, and that's where my memory totally ends. I don't know when we finally left. I don't remember getting back in the car. I don't remember going home. Nothing. I have no idea what they did to me there, but I think they did something. Not like I remember it or anything, it's just a feeling. They were strange people, and I have no idea what they were involved in, or what that meeting was all about, but nothing made sense. Why would they bring me there? Then separate me from all the other kids? Why don't I remember what happened after it got dark? I'm not the kind of kid who ever got tired and fell asleep. I would have stayed up all night if my parents let me. I have the feeling something very bad happened there, and that's why I've had the social problems I've had all my life.
Maybe it was some cultish religion thing and they don't like outsiders joining their gatherings. Or maybe the mom married into it and wasn't comfortable converting someone else's child. This is ignoring the fact that you don't remember the end of it or leaving, though. Weird and interesting story.
Be me around 10 or 11. The family is on a camping trip with a few other families that went camping every once in a while. Be late at night. This one boy and girl in the group asked me if we want to explore the forest. We do that every time Anon is so cool, walk around for a bit. See the girl turn around and just wander off into the dark. Wanted to tell the guy kid about it as he kept on walking. We couldn't find her anymore. Keep wandering. The other boy was playing with some frog on the side of the road we got to. Ask him, "Bro, do you even know where we are? You're not even looking for the girl anymore." He start to panic, and we both start screaming for help for about 20 minutes, walking aimlessly on the road. Truck headlights come down the road we got to. It's our parents with the girl inside. The girl claimed we just walked off and she couldn't find us anymore. Also saw 2 black UFOs high up in the sky once, and one of them seemed to be crashing down at the cornfield over the hill. Big bros went up to the cornfield and said there were circular patterns in it. Every kid in the neighborhood saw that, but no adult.
Be me around 5 or 6 years old, watching TV in room by myself, sitting on edge of the bed, rest of the family scattered around inside the house. We had a full house, one big family living together, my mom, uncle, and aunt, my sister, and my cousins, and 2 big dogs, Axel and Princess. Fairly normal Friday night, watching cartoons on VHS, old rock star Barbie. VHS. TV suddenly goes fuzzy, then changes randomly to Freddy Krueger sitting on a small rowboat in the middle of a large endless body of water. Freddy starts talking to me, holds his hand out, and asks me to join him on his boat. Don't say anything to him, just jump off the bed and start walking quickly to my door. Freddy sticks his head and arm out of the small TV screen and tells me I'm going to hell with him. Scream and run to the living room. I slept in Mom's bed that night and refused to go into my room. Never actually sleep. Just lay next to Mom for 8 hours till she wakes up and starts showering. I'm in my late 30s now, and my therapist tells me it was just a bad dream I had when I was a kid. I may have schizophrenia, but still, even to this day, I stand by it not being a dream.
Be me around 9 years old. Watching TV with Dad in the apartment living room. Have the door open to let air in. No AC, we're poor. 1 hour after we open the door, the girl jumps in and says boo. Her skin was pale and the dress was dirty. Didn't think much of it at the time. Jumps out into hallway and fucks off. Look at Dad like WTF happened. Go out and see where she went immediately. I would have heard footsteps running from the 3rd floor where I lived to ground level. Stairs were noisy as shit so we could hear. Nothing. No neighborhood kids running around. Everyone's door was shut. WTF. Go back inside and keep watching TV. Now that I recall that event, I think I might have encountered either a ghost or a homeless girl LOL, but maybe a ghost since my dad and I looked at each other like WTF. Another one, from that apartment, did not happen to me but to my mom. I was like 8 at the time, but she was gonna my little ass for what this asshole did. LMAO, I had a bowl cut at the time, so this will come into play. Be my mom, chilling in the bedroom. Bed shakes, yells to stop. Bed shakes again, yells to stop. 3rd time a mushroom haircut pops up from the edge and goes back under. Decides to lunge at me and spank me. Nothing there. Goes to check under bed, and what do you know? Nothing. She comes out and asks me WTF I was doing shaking the bed. Tell her I was in the other room with another relative playing on my PS2. A relative confirms I was with them the whole time. My face when I was going to get an ass whooping because of that asshole ghost. We moved out of that apartment a year after the ghost girl encounter.
Be around 4 years old. In the evening, I found a beetle the size of a grown man's hand in the house. My dad takes it outside. Later, going to sleep, I see flames shooting down the hallway. I run into my parents' room and they let me sleep in their bed with them. I see the ceiling open up and it's a dark green sky with rain pouring in. All the figurines on the shelves are moving. I remember a clay turtle moving its neck distinctly. I also remember the house rocking back and forth, and I thought the house was on the back of a giant. The next day, everything is normal, and nothing remotely similar ever happens again. My parents didn't see anything I did, but they say based on how I was acting and what I said, they believed there was definitely something weird going on.
Be me, around 4 years old in the early 2000s in Michigan. Wake up in the middle of the night. A bright blue moon illuminates the inside of my bedroom so vividly. I remember that the atmosphere was very calm and peaceful, despite my selfish, distant parents, and how they tried to make me view the world and each other. It encouraged me to be hidden away, so doing this by myself was extremely out of character in retrospect. Feel thirsty and decide to get a drink of water. Confidently sit up from bed and walk down the hallway. As I made my way into the living room, the moonlight was even more intense due to the big windows in such a small area. Grab a small glass of tap water and make my way to the couch and sit down. I propped a cushion so that I could lean on it. Just drink my water and I am just enjoying the stillness of my surroundings. After what I assumed to be around 2 minutes, I finished my drink and placed it back. I make my way back to my room and get ready to just go back to sleep. Get within around an arm's length away from the bed when I noticed that something was off. I was looking directly at myself. Not what I thought I looked like, but what I actually looked like. Get this surreal feeling with such crisp clarity looking at my own face that's not distorted by reflections as I normally would see it. I lean in more over myself and reach my right hand out slowly to touch my face. As soon as I made contact, I gasped awake in the opposite position that I was just observing literally instantly. It was similar to the falling feeling that I think most people can relate to, but was more intense and very thrilling. Everything was the same as it was just moments ago, the moon and odd brightness. I actually got up from my bed again and inspected the living room only to find the cushion sitting awkwardly in the middle of the couch.
This coincides with my epic game theory that when you lose your frame of reference for it like a clock, time loses meaning. Without getting into general relativity shit, basically if you don't look at time, it don't exist. But if it's dark and there ain't no light on time, neither the light of the eye nor the sun, who is looking at it to make it exist? Leading to odd stuff like seeing yourself from a few minutes ago. You had no frame of reference for time, and so your movement through it was backwards and weird. This also explains ghosts as actual moments in the past being replayed in the dark. Why are ghosts from different time periods? I don't know.
I definitely really like your perspective. Maybe extreme events on the soul make it detached from the body. I would fear for my life some nights while sleeping, genuinely believing I would be killed or something in my sleep. It really wasn't that bad, and I was never in actual mortal danger. But as a child, I was totally and utterly convinced. Maybe it's just the result of an echo in a way we can't see. I don't know, I'm just running my mouth. This experience is one of my only that gives me such conviction that life is bigger than I could ever imagine.
Be me and my mom, driving to a faraway soccer game. It's like 2 hours away before GPS was a thing. We stop in a parking lot in a school with a tiny jungle gym to look at a map and so I can use a porta potty. Sunny day. After I use the bathroom, my mom is outside of the car talking to an older kid who showed up on a bike. Look into the empty soccer field nearby. There is a giant clown lion, like a Chinese lion costume that 2 or 3 people would be in. But instead of a lion face, it is a combination clown lion. Get my mom and the other kid we didn't even know. We walk over to it. I am interested. It says hi and does a little dance around. I say hi and ask if it's hard for the back guy to move when he can't see. It has 4 legs, so it should be 2 people. It says it's only 1 person. I ask to look under its skirt. I look under and its legs all connect and have fabric covering them all over. There are no men under the costume. My mom sees I'm shocked about it. She probably thinks the dude is a flasher. She looks under, horrified. She tells us it's time to go. Makes the other kid we don't know leave the park. Ask her why there was no one under there. She says it was a robot. It was not a fucking robot.
Be me, 14, autist, riding jet skis with my dad on a big lake. I think it's fun to go fast and turn quickly to throw myself off. Decide to max out on speed and do this. I don't remember hitting the water. The next thing I know, Dad sees me and comes speeding over. Asks me where I've been. He's been riding in circles looking for me around my empty craft for several minutes. I tell him I just fell off and have been right here. See him visually shaken and unable to process it. He gets pale and tells me it's time to go home. Pretty sure I was either saved by an unseen force or died and respawned or switched universes or something. I believe it was my second time possibly dying in water. Haven't been in anything but a hot tub since. This place is not what it seems, anons.
Only kind of related. Young like 12, maybe less, don't remember exactly. Driving my ATV on a gravel road, going kind of fast, but my dad tells me to be careful and such, so I don't push it. He's talking to some weird guy in his truck as I go past. I don't know the guy, but my dad seemed to. I turn around and go past again. Guy has a shitty truck and his door is made of wood. At the last moment before I get to the truck, he flings the door open for some reason. I automatically swerve to avoid it, fall off and smash my head against a stone bridge side rail. Luckily, I had a helmet on. I still have no idea why that guy did that. Crying in the truck about why did he do that, etc. My dad says I just got the speed wobbles and got thrown off. I don't think my dad is lying to me because he's really nice to me and never hasn't been. I don't see why he would just lie about that, but he never talked to that guy again anymore, so maybe he really did see it happen or just believed me. Stupid guy almost got me killed for no reason at all. If I was older, I would have slammed right into the door, zero fucks, but I was a kid. Cruel. Anyways, I don't know why your story reminded me of that. I feel like that guy was evil.
Not childhood, but teenager. I was about 15 and walking my dog at about 1 a.m. I approached a slightly wooded area that was about 15 meters ahead, and I heard a cat's meowing coming from the woods. Suddenly, a young lady emerged from behind the trees, walking fast in my direction and looking down. She had folded arms and looked very distressed. My immediate impression was that she had been harmed in some way, so I asked, "Do you need help?" But she did not acknowledge me at all. At the same time, I could still hear a cat, but the meowing was getting louder. I couldn't get my eyes off of this girl. Something about her was so uncanny. As she passed by, about 7 meters to my right, I saw that whatever this was, it had the body of a lady and the head of a cat. It was not a mask. The head was the exact size and shape of a cat's head. The meowing immediately made sense. It was coming from this thing. It even followed her as she crossed the street behind me and walked down the sidewalk, getting quieter and quieter the further away from me that she got. I was completely dumbfounded as to what had just happened. I went into the wooded area, but I didn't see anyone or anything there. Eventually, I began to make my way back home, and I started to hear the meowing again. I turned around and saw the cat lady on the sidewalk, although she was very far away. The moment I saw her, she began running towards me. I ran home, locked my door, and stared out the window for at least 2 hours, but I didn't see anything. I even remember telling one of my friends, whom I was chatting with online, immediately after it happened, so I know I didn't imagine the whole thing. I'm a very skeptical person, and I don't believe in paranormal things whatsoever. But this is one thing I have no explanation for.
Late 80s. I was probably 5 years old. On vacation with my family and another family. In a rented condo, I think we were near Lake Tahoe. Myself and the rest of the kids running around the condo, having fun being in a new place. Every now and then catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. Looked like some kind of small person about the size of a cat. They were always just a silhouette, never able to see any color. Whenever I would see one, it was just ducking into the shadows. At one point, see what looked like pointy ears on one of them. Don't think much of it, having too much fun running around. Go to bed, wake up the next day. There's a piece of fool's gold in each of the kids' shoes. Our parents tell us to look outside. I think someone dropped their pot of gold outside. There are chocolate coins all over the yard. I had no concept of St. Patrick's Day prior to that trip, but I think I saw some shadow leprechauns in our condo the night before.
Be around age 6 with parents at the family home. Watching TV. Turned it off just to stare at the screen. Stare at the doorway behind me through the TV screen. See a dark figure looking at me through the doorway. Turn around. Man looks like some old Orthodox monk. I live in the Balkans and live in some 300-year-old home where the former owners were kicked out by communists. No bad juju or ghosts. Basically stares at me, exclaims, "Oh," while looking at me with a sort of bewilderment in his eyes as if he is excited to see me, a dumbass, baffled kid. He moves behind the doorway like some paper cutout in one solid piece being pulled. Never see the man again. Try to tell the story to parents. They look at each other like WTF. Pretend like they never heard that story again. I don't know what kind of magical visit that was. I was hoping that some of the more educated anons can answer the question, because it has been itching me my whole life, but here is where it gets worse. Be around the same age, driving in the car to the village with my family. Across the road are empty, recently plowed fields. See what basically looks like Don Corleone politely burying a fat man in casual clothing with a scraggly 6 o'clock shadow and rugged haircut at the corner of the field across the main road from where I was sitting in the car while gas was getting pumped. No one does anything nor questions it while the gas station is full of people. Alone in the car. The whole thing leaves me shocked. Tell story to my family, which consisted of my brother, father, and mother at the time. We were visiting my grandparents in a village. They say they didn't see shit, and basically gaslighted me into thinking that I'm lying my whole life over the story even though they knew I'm not a liar. I don't know what the hell I witnessed there, but it sure as shit was supernatural, because someone would have called the police on that. Rough rendition of basically what I've seen.
Be me, about 6 or 7 years old, playing in the mud with the hose in the backyard. Just me and the dog out. Have a fence going around the property. On one side is about 2 acres of woods, and another side is a huge ass pasture. Hear noise coming from the edge of the woods just behind the fence. Wire fence so you could see through it. And see leaves moving on the ground just beyond the fence. Dog starts barking ferociously and aggressively at the direction of the leaves rustling. See a tortoise emerge, literally looked like a Galapagos tortoise, absolutely huge. Although I was only 8 years old at most, this thing was taller than me. I live in central Florida, and there is definitely no species of tortoise near that size. The only other tortoise I could compare it to visually is a gopher tortoise. But they're small enough to pick up with your hands. Scream and start to run inside, but I hesitate and turn back to get my dog to come with me because at this point she's still ferociously barking at the tortoise and getting closer to it. Come to think of it, could you imagine your dog barking defensively at a little tortoise? If it was my imagination, I would assume the dog would just play with it or try to eat it like it would a squirrel, rabbit, or other small creature. I finally got the dog to listen and come with me. I go inside, terrified for my life, tell my grandma and aunt what happened. They shrug it off, still no explanation to this day. I know a turtle isn't the craziest thing that could happen, but it's unexplainable, and I guarantee it actually happened. Looked like pick-related, but massive. This is a species native to our part of Florida, and again, while it looked like this, and even did the same posture with its front arms, it was way larger than one of these. This is the only creature that looks like it. The only explanation I could ever find is an escaped Galapagos tortoise from a zoo or something, but the nearest zoo is a 45-minute drive.
When I was about 8 or so, I would visit my cousin's house, and I was always terrified of this huge tree they had, seemingly for no reason. It was tall, easily over 50 feet. It had a white trunk and sparse leaves on it so you could look up and see on its branches without having to look through leaves. I would sleep over and have nightmares about there being big green hands, like the size of my torso, with black claws in the tree where the branches met the trunk, and when I'd point them out, my aunt and uncle would say, "Those are just bananas," and they would fall down toward us. Sometime later, I visited them again for a birthday and couldn't help but look up at the tree. Obviously nothing there. But a few hours later, we're enjoying the party and I start feeling something off. I look up at the tree. There was a dead pigeon tied up where the branches met, swinging slightly as it hung from some thin rope. It wasn't there earlier and nobody could have climbed up to put it there. Other people clearly saw it after I gasped. It was high up enough that there wasn't any way to remove it, so the adults just did their best not to bring attention to it. Those relatives have moved houses a bunch for unrelated reasons. Nobody remembers this event except my kid cousin who lived there, but he describes it as a dead crow hung by its neck when I remember a light gray pigeon hung by its feet. I've had a ton of other prophetic dreams and premonitions that were admittedly mundane, and was in gait in elementary school. Don't remember anything particularly weird about it though.
Either a bruja did that or someone did that to keep one away. It's weird I specifically remember reading about this, but now when I try to look it up, I get a bunch of unrelated things or things about a bruja owl. Damn, they really fucked up Google. Anyways, if I recall correctly, in my town I found a bird hanging upside down in a tree with its wings splayed out. It was actually pretty spooky, and someone told me it was either to keep bruja, witch, away or it was done by her. I can't remember which, it's been a very long time.
I grew up in the U.S. Midwest, fairly rural, but lived in a normal neighborhood, about 1.5-acre lots. Between the ages of 10 to 14 or so, I'd have friends stay over as you do, and on nice summer nights we would sleep on the trampoline in the backyard. Not every time, but on some occasions we'd see these orbs or lights streak by us. They seemed to be only 20 to 30 feet above us as we'd lay on the trampoline looking up. They weren't solid, more like a glowing mass and transparent. Too big for fireflies. From our view, they seemed about the size of a grapefruit. A transparent glowing orb-type thing that moved quickly. Sometimes 2 or 3 would zoom by like they were chasing each other. But that's all it ever was. I was rural enough there was almost no light pollution. We could see the stars, but these weren't stars. Haven't thought about that for years. Any explanations?
Oh, cool, I've seen this in upstate New York. I live on a battlefield from the Revolutionary War where about 900 to 1,000 people died. Most are green and orange, and they make a buzzing noise when they move. Interesting that yours are in the sky. The ones we saw were ground level, but can go up into the trees. Thanks for posting. This has been a good thread so far.
I wonder if my childhood home is near something historically significant, but it doesn't seem likely. Everything around it was pasture, crops, cattle. I know there's old native stuff like much of the country. There's some Indian mounds in the county, but nothing I knew of nearby. The orbs I saw never had color that I remember, just a white glow, and I never saw them that low. They always seemed just out of reach, teasing us and playing. Also, it would either be a very active night on the trampoline, and we'd see the orbs 3 or 4 times, or nothing for weeks. Maybe they come from the trees. My backyard had 10 apple trees, 4 pear trees, and 2 cherry trees, along with many old growth oak and maple trees, so it was very wooded around the perimeter. The orbs seemed to dart back and forth from the trees. Thanks, Anon.
6 years old, sleeping in my parents' bed. I was afraid of my own room because of nightmares. Wake up in the middle of the night. Opening my eyes, I see a shape I know shouldn't be there. Rub my eyes to see better. It's someone standing by the bedroom door in a dog suit. Giant, lifeless white eyes. I close my eyes and rub them again. He's still there. I make sure both my parents are in the bed. The dogman just stands there, swaying slightly. I wave at it. Nothing. Decide I just need to go back to sleep. Never had anything like it happen again. Part of me thinks it's hallucination because I had just woken up.
ESL here. I will try to be as coherent as possible. One day I was on a trip with my family. We were heading towards a property my grandpa owned on a mountain chain, where we and our extended family went occasionally to spend the night there. I don't remember why, but for some reason we had to stay in the middle of the road and spend the night there. We had already crossed 3/4 of the road, which means that we were almost there, but also that we were surrounded by nature. There were only trees, shrubs, rocks, the light of the moon, and the stars as our only sources of environmental light. We were getting ready to go to sleep, and I remember looking out of the window of the car and looking at a shrub that was beside the car and seeing what was at the time described as little animals. However, there was something very peculiar about these little animals. They were not like any kind of animal you could find in nature. They were around 7 inches tall, clothed bipedal creatures with rodent-like features. They danced, signed, and talked to each other in a chirp-like fashion. The way they performed was similar to a theatrical show, and the weirdest thing about it was that as they showed and diapered at random points on the bush, light would appear around them, just as if it were a theatrical show. After staring at them for some time, I then told my family to look out the window so they could see what I was looking at. They looked, but didn't seem to care, not even my sister, who was only a couple of years older than me. At the time, I didn't understand. I thought they didn't find the sight interesting, but now I know they were not interested because only I could see them.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.